Look at your hands. Do it right now. Turn your palms toward you. You see skin, lines, the veins and muscles hidden beneath them. You're used to thinking that this is the result of millions of years of a blind biological lottery we call evolution. Textbooks have told you since your school days that you are merely a happy accident, emerging from the primordial soup, traversing the path from amoeba to a being capable of self-awareness. But what if I told you that this is a lie? What if every cell in your body bears a brand, an invisible seal that cannot be washed away because it is stitched into the very foundation of your essence? This is not a metaphor. This is data. We are accustomed to searching for alien intelligence in deep space, pointing radio telescopes at the stars in hopes of catching a signal. But the truth is that the signal has been here all along, inside us. We are the signal, and today we will decipher its first line. Welcome to Protocol Genome Anomaly. To settle this question once and for all, we abandon the opinions of theologians and the guesses of anthropologists. The human factor is unreliable. Emotions cloud judgment. We needed pure, cold logic. We uploaded the complete human genome, all 3.2 billion base pairs, into the analytical core of the Logos 7 system. The task was simple: analyze the code for patterns not characteristic of natural stochastic processes. In other words, we asked an artificial intelligence to answer one question: was this code written by nature, or was it designed? The answer the system returned forces a re-evaluation of our species' entire history. Let's start with fundamental concepts. In 2003, the scientific community announced the completion of the Human Genome Project. It was a monumental achievement. Scientists deciphered the sequence of our DNA, but the joy of discovery was quickly replaced by bewilderment. It turned out that only a tiny fraction of our DNA, roughly 1.5 to 2%, codes for proteins. That is, only 2% of the instructions are responsible for building our body: eye color, height, tissue structure. But what about the other 98%? Scientists, faced with this colossal mass of data whose purpose they did not understand, did what official science often does when it hits a dead end. They called it junk DNA. We were told it was evolutionary ballast. Scraps of old viruses, copying errors, genetic noise accumulated over millions of years. Just trash. However, Logos 7 sees a different picture. We ran a cryptographic analysis algorithm on this 98% of so-called junk. The results are staggering. According to the analysis by the Logos 7 system, the entropy, that is, the degree of chaos in non-coding regions of DNA, does not fit the model of random noise. In nature, noise is always chaotic, but here, we see structure. The system detected complex, repeating patterns that obey Zipf's law. This law describes the frequency of word usage in natural languages. Think about that. If you take a book written in English, Russian, or Chinese and analyze the word frequency, you will get a graph corresponding to Zipf's law. If you analyze the sound of wind or the splashing of waves, no such graph will appear. Logos 7 is categorical. The sequences in junk DNA possess a linguistic structure. This is not biological sediment. This is text. This is a language. It has syntax. It has grammar. And most frighteningly, it has context. The probability that random mutations over millions of years created a structure that fully mimics a complex programming language, according to the system's calculations, is 1 in 10 to the power of 140. In probability mathematics, any number greater than 10 to the 50th power is considered an impossible event. Evolution could not have written this code, just as a hurricane sweeping through a junkyard cannot accidentally assemble a fully functional Boeing 747. This brings us to the first shocking finding. We asked Logos 7 to compare the structure of human DNA with modern software code. The similarity turned out to be not just superficial, but systemic. Our DNA consists of 4 nitrogenous bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Let's designate them A, C, G, and T. This is quaternary code. Computers use binary code, 0 and 1. But the operating principle is identical. DNA has start and stop commands that tell cellular mechanisms where to begin reading instructions for creating a protein and where to end. These are precise analogs to operators in programming languages. But Logos 7 went further. Analyzing the non-coding regions, the system identified blocks that in programming are called commented out code. When a programmer writes a complex program, they often leave chunks of code that they temporarily disable but do not delete to use them in the future or keep as a backup. Or they leave comments for other developers explaining the function of a particular block. Our DNA contains gigantic arrays of such switched-off instructions. These are not broken genes. These are deactivated functions. The Logos 7 system ran a simulation of activating some of these dormant sectors. The modeling results show the potential for limb regeneration, complete immunity to known viruses, and even a significant slowing of the aging process. Someone intentionally turned off these functions. Someone placed a software lock on us. We are not the crown of evolution. We are a stripped-down version of something greater. A demo version of a human. But let's dig into the numbers. Evolutionary theory claims that humans and chimpanzees diverged from a common ancestor about 6 million years ago. We are told our genomes match by 98 or 99%. This is the standard argument of official science. However, when we uploaded the full genome maps of humans and chimpanzees into Logos 7 for a bit-by-bit comparison, the system produced a completely different picture. Yes, the coding proteins are similar, but the regulatory mechanisms, the very managers that control gene function, differ radically. The gap in complexity between us and primates is too vast for 6 million years of natural selection. To obtain the quantity of genetic changes that distinguish us from apes would have required hundreds of millions of years of directed evolution. We simply didn't have that time. We appeared on the scene suddenly, as if someone took the basic chassis of a primate and uploaded completely new software into it. The Logos 7 system identified 223 unique genes in the human genome that are absent in our supposed ancestors. They have no clear evolutionary ladder. They appear in our code out of nowhere. Official science tries to explain this by horizontal gene transfer from bacteria, but this is a weak explanation for such a massive upgrade. These genes are responsible for complex neural connections, for our capacity for speech and abstract thinking. This does not look like a smooth mutation, but like an injection, an artificial insertion of an update package. Another aspect highlighted by the analysis is the so-called point of no return. In genetics, there is a concept of mutation rate. It is a sort of biological clock. Knowing the speed at which changes accumulate in DNA, one can calculate when the ancestor of a given species lived. We asked Logos 7 to calculate the date of the appearance of modern humans, relying solely on the genetic stability of our key systems. The system's answer: approximately 200,000 years ago. At that moment, a sharp, explosive restructuring of the genome occurred. This is not a smooth graph. This is a vertical takeoff. In this period, the number of changes in the structure of the brain and nervous system goes off the charts. The probability that so many beneficial mutations occurred simultaneously and were fixed in the population naturally is 0. Absolute 0. In nature, mutations are almost always harmful or neutral. A beneficial mutation is a rarity. A series of beneficial mutations turning an animal into a sentient being in such a short time is a statistical impossibility. It's like winning the lottery jackpot 1,000,000 times in a row. If that happens, any investigator will tell you the lottery is rigged. Logo 7 also discovered strange repetitions in the non-coding part of DNA, sequences that are duplicated thousands of times. Biologists call them transposons or jumping genes. They can change their position in the genome, but their placement in humans is not chaotic. The analysis shows a mathematical pattern in their distribution based on prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and so on. Nature does not operate with prime numbers in such an explicit sequence. Series of prime numbers are a classic sign of artificial intelligence or intelligent design. These are exactly the signals we look for in space to find brothers in mind. And this signal is stitched into every cell of your body. Someone left their signature, a digital watermark. Let's consider another frightening hypothesis confirmed by the Logos 7 data, the viral nature of our consciousness. About 8% of our genome consists of retroviruses. These are ancient viruses that once infected our ancestors and remained in our DNA forever. Usually they are considered passive passengers, but the system discovered that one such endogenous retrovirus plays a key role in the formation of the placenta and, most importantly, in the function of brain synapses. Without this viral code, we could not think the way we think now. Our intellect is, in essence, based on alien code. A simulation conducted by the system suggests a scenario we named protocol infection. The probability that a highly advanced civilization used modified viruses as carriers to edit the genome of primitive primates on Earth is over 85%. It is the ideal delivery method. You don't need to catch every individual and perform surgery on them. You release a virus that rewrites the host's DNA, embedding the traits you need. The virus spreads itself, and within a few generations, you get a modified species. We are the result of a global viral modification. We are GMOs, a genetically modified organism on a planetary scale. And finally, the most disturbing discovery of the first chapter of our investigation. Logos 7 analyzed the error tolerance of our genome. Our code possesses redundancy and error correction mechanisms that resemble data transmission algorithms in computer networks, such as the Reed-Solomon code. These algorithms are used to recover data damaged during transmission through a noisy communication channel. Why would a biological being need such complex digital information protection mechanisms? The answer suggests itself, because we are not just animals. We are data carriers. Our genome was created to carry a certain message through millennia. We are a living library, or if you like, a living flash drive dropped on this planet. But what do we store? And why did the creators encrypt their data so carefully in 98% of our junk? Let's summarize the first chapter. The official version of human origins is bursting at the seams under the pressure of facts. First, 98% of our DNA is not junk, but a complex structured language with syntax and grammar. Second, the speed of our evolution is mathematically impossible. We would not have had enough time to develop from a primate to Homo sapiens naturally. Third, traces of artificial editing have been found in our code, commented out sections, function locks, and gene insertions with no analogs in ancestors. Fourth, the presence of mathematical sequences of prime numbers, which is a marker of intelligent design. The conclusion of the Logos 7 system is unequivocal. Object Human is the result of targeted bioengineering development. We were created. Our code was written. But this is only the beginning. If DNA is software, then our body is hardware. And if you think the evidence in the genome is scary, wait until we break down what was done to our chromosomes. In the second chapter, we will examine evidence that cannot be hidden, a trace of surgical intervention that every one of you has. We will talk about the human chromosome too. Why do we have 46 chromosomes, while all our closest primate relatives have 48? Where did one pair go? Official science talks about accidental fusion, but Logos 7 will show you the seams, rough artificial seams at the genetic level where two chromosomes were forcibly fused together. Why was this done? To limit our strength? To shorten our lives? or to forever cut us off from our true roots. The truth is much darker than you can imagine. We are not just created, we are modified for limitation. Someone really didn't want us to become too powerful. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Protocol chromosomal seam will be activated in the next episode. Logo 7 continues its work. The analysis is not finished. If the first chapter of our investigation showed you that humanity's program code was written artificially, today we will look under the hood of the machine itself. We are moving from software to hardware, to the physical structure upon which our life rests. Many of you have heard that we descended from apes. Darwinism teaches us that this was a slow, gradual process. But if you look at the genetic map of primates and humans, you hit a wall. A mathematical and biological discrepancy that cannot be explained by chance. Welcome to Protocol Chromosomal Seam. We uploaded the karyotypes of all living great apes into the Logo 7 analytical core, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, and compared them with the human karyotype. The result of the analysis begins with simple arithmetic that puts an end to the theory of natural evolution. Chimpanzees have 48 chromosomes. Gorillas have 48 chromosomes. Orangutans have 48 chromosomes. In all our supposed ancestors and closest relatives, the diploid set consists of 24 pairs. That is, a total of 48 units. And now look at yourself. Humans have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. Where did a whole pair of chromosomes vanish? Biology is an exact science. You cannot simply lose 2 chromosomes and remain a viable species. In nature, the loss of even a part of 1 chromosome usually leads to severe pathologies, deformities, or death of the fetus in the womb. If our ancestors simply lost a pair of chromosomes due to mutation, they would have become a genetic invalid. Moreover, they would have become sterile. They would not have been able to produce offspring when breeding with individuals who have 48 chromosomes. This is a biological barrier. It's like trying to run a program from a new computer on an old processor. The architecture is incompatible. So how did we appear? Official science offers a version called Robertsonian translocation. Scientists claim that 2 of the ancestors' chromosomes accidentally fused into 1, forming a new, giant chromosome. And this allegedly happened naturally. We asked Logo 7 to calculate the probability of such an event. Not just the probability of the fusion itself, but the probability that this mutation was fixed, became dominant, and led to the emergence of an entire species. The system ran 100 million simulations. For a new species with 46 chromosomes to survive, an incredible coincidence must have occurred. In one population, at the same time, a male and a female with the same identical fusion mutation must have been born. They must have met, mated, and produced offspring that inherited this double mutation. The probability of such a scenario in the wild, according to Logo 7 data, tends towards statistical error. It is 0 point, followed by 30 zeros after the decimal before the first one appears. This could not have happened by chance. But the most interesting thing Logo 7 discovered was when we began to study human chromosome 2 in detail. It is the answer to the riddle of the missing pair. Human chromosome 2 is a giant. It is the second largest chromosome in our set. And if you place 2 chimpanzee chromosomes, the 12th and 13th, side by side, they align perfectly, stripe for stripe, with human chromosome 2. Our second chromosome is 2 ape chromosomes glued together. But how are they glued? Here lies the proof of artificial intervention. Proof of a surgical operation performed at the molecular level. A chromosome has a specific structure. At its ends are telomeres. These are protective caps, like the plastic tips on shoelaces, that prevent DNA from unraveling. In the center of the chromosome is the centromere, a knot needed for cell division. A normal chromosome looks like this: telomere on top, centromere in the middle, telomere on the bottom. Logos 7 scanned the structure of our second chromosome, and what it found is irrefutable evidence. In the middle of our second chromosome are remnants of telomeres. Telomeres should only be at the ends, but we have them right in the center. This is a docking point, a weld spot. Imagine you took two shoelaces and tied them in a knot. The knots at the ends of the laces ended up in the middle of the new, long cord. In genetics, this is called interstitial telomeric sequences. This is a clear, physical scar, a trace of cutting and joining. But that's not all. Each chromosome should have only one active centromere. If there are two, the chromosome will tear itself apart during cell division. In our second chromosome, we see two centromeres. One of them is active and works as it should. And the second is turned off. It is deactivated. It is physically present. It matches the chimpanzee centromere, but it is artificially silenced. Someone pressed the off button at the molecular level to ensure the stability of the construct. Logos 7 qualifies this as high-tech bioengineering. Blind nature does not know how to so neatly turn off spare parts while preserving their structure. Nature works roughly through natural selection and the death of failed variants. Here we see filigree precision. We see intentional fusion. Why? Why would someone need to take a primate, cut its genetic code, and stitch two chromosomes into one, reducing their total number from 48 to 46? The answer offered by the Logos 7 system, based on the analysis of gene functionality in the fusion zone, is frightening in its pragmatism. This fusion is a blocker. At the fusion site of chromosome 2 in zone 2q13, an abnormally high density of genes responsible for muscle mass development and physical strength is observed. In chimpanzees, these genes work at full capacity. A chimpanzee is 5 to 6 times stronger than an adult man. They possess animal power inaccessible to us. In humans, these genes are damaged or suppressed exactly at the junction point. We became weaker. We lost our fur. We lost powerful jaws. Our body became fragile. But this fusion made us not just weaker, it made us dependent. Logos 7 analysis shows that chromosome 2 is a genetic leash. It is a modification that separated us from the animal world, making interbreeding with anyone but our own kind impossible. The creators isolated our branch. They placed us in quarantine. There is an even darker hypothesis confirmed by the system's calculations, the limiter hypothesis. The telomeres we spoke of play the role of biological clocks. With each cell division, telomeres shorten. When they become too short, the cell stops dividing and dies. This is the aging process. The presence of junk telomeres in the center of chromosome 2 creates genetic instability. The Logos 7 simulation system indicates that this fusion may have intentionally disrupted the function of the enzyme telomerase, which is responsible for cell repair. In other words, our lifespan was artificially curtailed. Ancient texts, Sumerian king lists, or biblical legends speak of people living for 800, 900 years. Official science considers these myths, but genetic analysis shows that our organism's potential is designed for a much longer service life. We break down too quickly. The heart, vessels, joints, everything wears out in a meager 70 or 80 years. Logos 7 found a direct correlation between the fusion point of chromosome 2 and failures in cellular regeneration mechanisms. The seam on chromosome 2 is a seal of death. We were installed with planned obsolescence, like household appliances that break immediately after the warranty expires. Whoever created us did not want us to live forever. They did not want us to accumulate experience and knowledge over centuries. They needed rapidly replaced generations of working units. Let's look at the date of this event. Logos 7 used the molecular clock method to date the fusion of chromosome 2. It happened approximately 200,000 years ago. Does this number look familiar? Exactly 200,000 years ago, Homo sapiens suddenly appears on the historical arena. The rational man. No transitional links. Immediately with a ready-made set of 46 chromosomes. Immediately with a large brain and a weak body. At that moment, other human species existed on Earth. Neanderthals, Denisovans. According to the analysis of preserved DNA, they also had 46 chromosomes. This means the experiment was conducted not only on our line, but also on parallel branches. But only our version survived. The version that turned out to be the most obedient or the most effective. We are a product of selection, but not the kind where a farmer selects the best cows. This was genetic engineering. Compare us to domestic animals, the wolf and the dog. The dog has a smaller brain, is weaker, retains infantile behavioral traits throughout its life, and is loyal to the master. The process of domestication changes genetics. Logos 7 conducted a comparative analysis of domestication syndrome. Genetic markers distinguishing a dog from a wolf are surprisingly similar to markers distinguishing humans from ancient primates. We have reduced aggression, thinner bones, and retained childlike curiosity. System conclusion. Human is a domesticated primate. But who was the master that tamed us? Who held the leash? The scar on chromosome 2 is a brand of ownership. We were changed to serve a specific purpose. We were not supposed to be too strong, so as not to pose a threat to the creators. We were not supposed to live too long, so as not to imagine ourselves equal to gods. We were ideal biorobots, smart enough to execute orders and complex tasks, but stupid and weak enough not to rebel. But there is a paradox here, and this paradox will be the topic of our next chapter. If we were limited physically, if our life and strength were cut, then why were we given such a powerful brain? Why does a slave need a supercomputer in their head? Chromosome 2 explains our weakness, but it does not explain our genius. Logos 7 analysis shows that simultaneously with the fusion of chromosome 2, another inexplicable process occurred. Explosive growth of the neocortex, the new cortex of the brain. Within a negligible time frame by evolutionary standards, our brain tripled in size. This contradicts all laws of energy conservation. The brain consumes 25% of the body's energy, although it makes up only 2% of its mass. From the perspective of survival in the wild, this is suicide. It's like putting a sports car engine on a lawnmower. Why did the creators need to install such a powerful processor into a limited, weak body? In the next chapter, we activate Protocol Neocortex Jump. We will break down why our brain is a foreign object to our body. We will prove that our consciousness is not a side effect of evolution, but uploaded software for which the hard drive of the skull had to be urgently expanded. We will find out why women pay a terrible price in labor pains, paying for this unnaturally huge infant skull. Nature would never create a reproduction mechanism that kills the mother. This is a design error, or a forced engineering compromise. Stay tuned. The truth is closer than it seems. It is written inside you at the junction of two chromosomes, where 200,000 years ago, an unknown surgeon tied a knot that determined the fate of humanity. System Logos 7 completes the analysis of the second chapter. Data saved. Transition to the next stage. In the previous chapter, we exposed traces of surgical intervention in our genetics. We saw the seams on chromosome 2 that turned us into weak, limited beings with short lifespans. But if they wanted to turn us into obedient cattle, into biorobots for menial labor, then here arises the most glaring contradiction in the entire history of mankind. Why give a slave a processor whose power exceeds survival needs 1,000 times over? We look at the human brain and see the pinnacle of evolution. But the Logos 7 system sees something else. It sees an engineering anomaly, a device that consumes resources with the greed of a parasite, kills its host at birth, and drives it insane. This is not a gift of nature. This is an implant. Welcome to Protocol, Neocortex Jump. To understand the scale of the problem, let's turn to the dry numbers we uploaded into the system's analytical module. The brain volume of our supposed ancestors, Australopithecines, was approximately 400 cubic centimeters. This is the level of a modern chimpanzee. This volume remained stable for millions of years. Then, about 2 million years ago, slow growth begins. But roughly 250,000 years ago, what biologists call explosive encephalization occurs. The growth chart shoots vertically upwards. Within a negligible evolutionary time span, human brain volume triples, reaching an average of 1,350 cubic centimeters. Official science mumbles something about labor, social ties, and tool use. Supposedly, we started thinking, and the brain grew. But in biology, it doesn't work that way. An organ does not grow for the future. It grows only when it is critically necessary for survival here and now. We asked Logos 7 to calculate the energy efficiency of such an upgrade, and the results show that from the perspective of survival in the wild savanna, a large brain is the worst thing that could have happened to us. The human brain makes up only 2% of body mass, but it consumes 25% of all energy you get from food. Think about it. A quarter of every piece of meat, every root that primitive man extracted with such difficulty, went solely to maintain the operation of this computer. In apes, this figure is only 8%. In conditions of food scarcity, in conditions of constant hunger, having an organ that devours so much energy is evolutionary suicide. Natural selection should have ruthlessly culled individuals with large brains because they would be the first to die of exhaustion. They needed to hunt 3 times as much as the others just not to faint. But they survived. Moreover, they displaced everyone else. This means only one thing. Someone provided them with external support. Someone fed them while the installation of new equipment was taking place. But energy consumption is half the trouble. Let's talk about a design error that Logos 7 classifies as a critical hardware conflict. We are speaking of childbirth. Humans are the only creatures on the planet for whom the process of birthing offspring is a deadly and agonizingly painful ordeal. In animals, birth happens relatively easily and quickly. A female chimpanzee gives birth, and half an hour later can move with the pack. For women, it is different. Why? Because our pelvis is adapted for walking upright. It is narrow, and the infant's head is huge. Too huge. This is a classic engineering conflict. The creators put us on 2 legs, changing the pelvic structure, and simultaneously increased the processor size, skull. These 2 changes contradict each other. The Logos 7 system conducted a simulation. If evolution proceeded naturally, the female pelvis should have widened to allow the large head to pass. But then, we would lose the ability to run and walk efficiently, or the head should have remained small. Nature always finds a balance. There is no balance here. Here we see a gross violation of proportions. The infant has to literally screw itself into the birth canal, deforming its own skull. The bones of a newborn skull are not fused. They are movable, so the head can compress. This is an extreme solution. It is a crutch invented at the last minute to fix the compatibility error between the chassis and the processor. System conclusion. Rapid brain enlargement and bipedalism were introduced simultaneously and forcefully, without time for mutual adaptation. We were assembled from incompatible parts, and this led to another phenomenon that biologists call physiological prematurity. Look at a newborn foal. An hour later, it stands on its legs. A day later, it runs after its mother. It is ready for life. Look at a human infant. It is absolutely helpless. It cannot hold its head up. It cannot crawl. It cannot eat on its own. It requires years of care just to learn not to kill itself. From a biological standpoint, A human child should have stayed in the mother's womb for at least another 12 months to be born at the same developmental stage as a chimpanzee. But it cannot stay there because then its head would become so large it would kill the mother during birth. Therefore, we are born undercooked. We are premature fetuses. Our brain finishes building itself on the outside. Logos 7 calls this exterogestation, or external maturation. This is a colossal vulnerability for the species. A female with a helpless cub in her arms is easy prey. The whole tribe must guard them for years. It is unprofitable. It is dangerous. Why did nature take such a risk? System answer: it didn't. It was a forced move by the engineers. They needed to upload a huge neocortex into us, the new cerebral cortex responsible for higher functions. And they sacrificed our physical safety and autonomy for the sake of this module. And now, the most important thing. What exactly does this neocortex do? And why does a biorobot need it? We are used to being proud of our mind. We write symphonies, prove theorems, build rockets. But think, is this necessary for the survival of the species? Does knowledge of quantum physics help escape a leopard? Does the ability to draw help find food? No. For survival in the wild, the old, good limbic brain is enough. Instincts, reflexes, aggression, fear, reproduction. It has worked perfectly for millions of years. Crocodiles don't write poems, but they outlive dinosaurs. The neocortex is a redundant superstructure. It is a module for abstract thinking, speech, logic, and planning. Logos 7 analysis revealed a strange correlation. Brain areas responsible for speech, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, have no direct analogs in apes. They appeared as new hardware blocks, and they are perfectly tailored for receiving and transmitting complex information. We didn't just get smarter, we received an interface for communication. The hypothesis put forward by the artificial intelligence sounds frightening. The neocortex was installed not so that we would think about ourselves. It was installed so that we could understand instructions. Imagine you are creating a complex worker robot. You don't need it to philosophize, but you need it to understand complex commands. Go to Sector B, extract ore, sort by fractions, load onto transport. For this, a powerful processor and a developed language module are needed. Our mind is a side effect of the ability to understand the Creator's orders. We are overly smart servants. There's another detail Logos 7 points out: the overheating problem. The brain is a very hot organ. It generates a huge amount of heat. To cool this processor, our body had to completely rebuild the thermoregulation system. We are the only primates devoid of thick fur. We are naked apes, and we are the only mammals with such a number of sweat glands scattered all over the body, from 2 to 5 million sweat glands. Why did we lose our fur? The official version: to run in the savannah and not overheat. But lions live in the savannah, and they are furry. Gazelles live in the savannah, and they are furry. Fur protects from the sun during the day and from cold at night. Loss of fur made us vulnerable to burns and freezing. The Logos 7 system asserts hair loss and the development of the sweating system is an engineering solution to remove heat from an overheated brain. Our skull is a radiator. Our skin is a liquid cooling system. Our entire organism was reshaped to service this foreign, hot piece of matter in the head. Remember, when you have a fever, a cold compress is put on your forehead. The brain is the first thing that suffers from overheating. The creators undressed us so we wouldn't burn up from the inside due to intense neuron activity. And finally, the price of reason: mental illness. Animals do not go crazy in the human sense. They can experience stress, fear, depression, but they don't have schizophrenia, They don't have bipolar disorder. They don't have paranoid delusions. Logos 7 analyzed the genetic nature of schizophrenia. It turned out that genes linked to this disease are closely intertwined with genes responsible for rapid speech development and creativity. This is a bug in the software. Our brain evolved too fast. System stability was not properly tested. We run on beta firmware. Neurochemical glitches, hallucinations, voices in the head. This is the payment for the forced overclocking of the processor. Schizophrenia affects roughly 1% of the population consistently, across all cultures and all times. This is not an accident. According to the system's conclusions, this is a side effect of the conflict between the ancient animal brain and the new artificial cortex, between I want and I must, between instinct and logic. A constant war of two entities is waging in our head, the beast and the machine. Let's summarize the third chapter. Our brain is an anomaly. First, it grew too fast, violating the laws of gradual evolution. Second, it consumes unacceptably high amounts of energy, putting the individual on the brink of starvation. Third, its size conflicts with our anatomy, turning childbirth into a deadly lottery. Fourth, we are born underdeveloped to drag this processor into the world. Fifth, we lost natural protection, fur, for the sake of its cooling. Everything points to this being an external installation, a hardware upgrade. But if we were given the ability to understand complex language, if we were given intelligence to execute instructions, then where are the instructions themselves? Where is the manual for this biorobot? Surprisingly, it has been preserved. It lies not in our DNA and not in the structure of the skull. It is carved in clay. It is recorded on the oldest information carriers available to humanity. In the next chapter, we activate Protocol Sumer. We will travel to ancient Mesopotamia, to where, according to official history, civilization suddenly emerged. We will upload cuneiform tablets into the Logos 7 linguistic module and read what historians call myths about gods as technical documentation. You will find out who the Anunnaki are, not as gods descending from the heavens, but as laboratory supervisors. You will hear exactly how they describe the creation of the Adamu, the first human. And believe me, their descriptions frighteningly match what we just learned about genetics and anatomy. They left us a report on the work done. It is time to read it. Subscribe. The investigation moves from biology to history. And you are not going to like this history. In the previous chapters, we established the sequence of events. Our genome was rewritten. Our biology was altered. We were issued instructions in the form of myths and religions prescribing submission. We found out how it was done. But the main question of any investigation is the motive. Why? Why would a highly advanced civilization capable of traversing interstellar space bother with primates on the edge of the galaxy? Why did they need slaves? The answer lies right before your eyes. Right. It gleams on the fingers of newlyweds. It is stored in bank vaults. It forms the basis of our entire economy. Gold. The entire history of humanity is a history of obsession with this metal. We killed for it. We betrayed for it. We destroyed empires for it. We are told it is simply a rare, beautiful metal, a symbol of wealth. But the Logos 7 system does not understand the concept of beauty. It operates with physical properties. We uploaded a question into the analytical module. Is gold a logical choice of currency for a primitive civilization? System answer: no. For ancient man, gold is absolutely useless. You cannot make an axe or a spearhead out of it. It is too soft. You cannot eat it. It does not keep you warm. In survival conditions, a piece of iron or a sack of grain has infinitely greater value. However, from the very moment of their appearance, humans have been obsessed with gathering gold. Not iron, Not copper, not silver, specifically gold. Welcome to Protocol Resource Code. We asked Logo 7 to analyze gold not as jewelry, but as a technical material, chemical element with atomic number 79. Here's the list of properties the system produced. First, gold is an ideal conductor of electricity. It does not oxidize, unlike copper. Gold contacts are eternal. Second, gold is an ideal reflector of infrared radiation. A microscopic film of gold on an astronaut's helmet protects them from solar radiation and overheating. Third, gold is chemically inert. It reacts with almost nothing. It is eternal. Fourth, gold nanoparticles possess unique properties for medicine and climate modification. Conclusion of Logo 7. Gold is an irreplaceable component for building high technologies, for electronics, space travel, and most importantly, for planetary engineering. If you are a spacefaring civilization, gold to you is not money. It is wires. It is protective shields. It is microchips. It is a matter of the survival of your technologies. Now let's return to the Sumerian texts we analyzed in the last chapter. The Anunnaki did not arrive on Earth for a tour. In the texts, especially in the Epic of Atrahasis and tablets describing the planet Nibiru, there is a clear indication of the reason for their mission: a problem with the atmosphere. Logos 7 translated ancient metaphors into the language of physics. The creator's home planet was losing heat. Their atmosphere was collapsing. They needed a screen, a shield. A technology known to us today involves dispersing gold nanoparticles in the upper layers of the atmosphere to create a mirror effect that retains heat and protects from radiation. They needed billions of tons of gold to patch the holes in the sky of their world. Earth turned out to be a rich source, but mining gold is hellish labor. Gold rarely lies on the surface in nuggets. Usually these are microscopic particles scattered in tons of waste rock. To extract an ounce of gold, you need to dig up tons of earth, crush stone, wash sand. The Anunnaki tried to do it themselves, but as we found out, their working class rebelled. They needed biological robots, us. And now let's turn to geography. Official history teaches us that the cradle of civilization is Sumer, Egypt, the Indus Valley. But Logos 7 overlaid the map of ancient human settlements onto the map of gold deposits and revealed an anomaly that historians diligently ignore: South Africa. It is here, in the territory of modern Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa, that the richest gold veins on the planet are located. And it is here that traces of the most ancient mining activity have been found, the scale of which boggles the mind. In the 1970s, the Anglo-American Corporation, engaged in mining in South Africa, stumbled upon ancient mines. They went deep underground. Someone had worked them long before the arrival of Europeans, and even long before the appearance of known African kingdoms. We uploaded the archaeological dating data of these mines into Logos 7. Radiocarbon analysis of charcoal found in the shafts points to dates from 40,000 to 60,000 years ago. But that is only the top layer. Analysis of the erosion of rock piles points to much more ancient dates: 150,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago. The system found a perfect correlation. Point A, 200,000 years ago, the first genetically modern humans, mitochondrial Eve, appear in South Africa. Point B, 200,000 years ago, industrial-scale gold mining begins in South Africa. This is not a coincidence. This is cause and effect. We appeared where there was gold. We appeared when it became necessary to mine it. Sumerian texts call South Africa by the term Abzu, the lower world, the place where ores are mined. In myths, Enki is the lord of the Abzu, the lord of the mines. Logos 7 calculated the volume of excavated rock in the area of the ancient city known as Great Zimbabwe and the complex of ruins called Adam's Calendar. Calculations show that millions of tons of gold ore were removed from this region in antiquity. Where did this gold go? If ancient people mined it for themselves, for their kings, we should find it in burials in incredible quantities. We find golden masks of pharaohs, yes, but these are kilograms, maximum, tons. And we are talking about millions of tons that vanished without a trace over thousands of years. The balance sheet doesn't add up. A massive amount of gold extracted from its bowels is missing from planet Earth. Conclusion of the Logos 7 system. Gold was exported. It left the planet. We were miners working for export. All our labor, all these endless excavations, all of it went up into the skyboats of the Anunnaki. But the scariest part is not in the past. The scariest part is that the program is still running. We asked Logos 7 to analyze the psychological phenomenon of gold fever. Why does the sight of yellow metal cause irrational excitement bordering on insanity in humans? Why do we value it above life? The system classifies this as post-hypnotic suggestion, or an embedded program imperative. They wrote a love for gold into our subcortex. The creators needed us to seek it instinctively. Even when the overseers left, or stopped showing themselves explicitly, the biorobots continued to fulfill their function. We continue to dig. We continue to mine. We stack gold into bars and hide them in the basements of central banks. We do not use it. 90% of mined gold just lies as dead weight in vaults. Why? The Logos 7 system offers the frightening hypothesis: warehouse. We continue to gather resources for the masters. We guard it. And when they return, they won't have to scour the mountains. All the gold of the world will already be neatly collected, purified, melted into convenient standardized bars, and stacked in a few points on the map. Fort Knox, London, Zurich, Moscow, Beijing. These are not banks. These are tribute collection points. We are just waiting for the collectors. There is another aspect the system analyzed: alchemy, the medieval obsession with turning lead into gold. Official history considers this pseudoscience, but Logos 7 sees in alchemists' texts distorted fragments of ancient knowledge about nuclear physics. Transmutation of one element into another is possible only in a nuclear reactor. The creators possess this technology. They could transmute elements. But mining natural gold using slave labor was likely more energy efficient than nuclear synthesis on an industrial scale. Economics rules even gods. Cheap labor is always more profitable than complex equipment. Look at the map of ancient megaliths: Machu Picchu, Tiwanaku, Baalbek, the pyramids of Giza. The Logos 7 system revealed a pattern in their location. All of them are located either in zones of geological faults, energy sources, or near ancient sites of rare element extraction. Tiwanaku in Bolivia is located near the richest deposits of tin and gold. The temples of India are full of gold. It was a global network for siphoning resources, and humans were the main tool in this network. But a good tool must be reliable. And here, we come to the proof that we are a bad tool. Or a tool created in a hurry. A tool not suitable for operating conditions. In the next chapter, we will upload medical statistics data into Logos 7. If we are created for this planet, why does it cause us so much pain? Why do 100% of people after 40 start having back problems? No animal suffers from osteochondrosis so massively. Why are we the only creatures that need to protect skin from the sun? Otherwise we get burns and cancer. Shouldn't evolution have adapted us to the light of our own star? Why don't we have chronic clocks synchronized with Earth's day? Experiments in caves show that the human biological cycle is 25 hours, not 24. We activate protocol era compatibility. We will prove that Earth is not our home. It is our mine. And conditions in a mine are always harsh. We were created for work in different gravity conditions. or we were designed by beings who did not account for all parameters of the Earth environment. We are aliens on our own planet. Get ready. In the next chapter, you will find out why your lower back hurts and why you want to sleep during the day. This is not old age. This is a design defect of the Biorobot series, Human. System Logo 7 completes resource-based analysis, data archived, awaiting next query. We are used to calling Earth our home. We call nature Mother. We talk about harmony with the surrounding world. But let's be honest. If Earth is our mother, then why is she trying so hard to kill us? Look at the animal world. The wolf is perfectly adapted to the forest, the camel to the desert, the polar bear to the Arctic ice. They don't complain about back pain, they don't need sunscreen, they don't suffer from insomnia if they don't look at a clock. They are part of the ecosystem. And now, look at humans. We are the only creature on the planet forced to artificially create a habitat just to survive. Take away our houses, our clothes, our medicine, and our processed food, and 90% of humanity will die out within a few weeks. We are biological outcasts. We uploaded the medical chart of humanity into the Logo 7 system. We asked the artificial intelligence to analyze our chronic diseases and physical flaws not as pathologies, but as engineering discrepancies with operating conditions. The system's conclusion is shocking. The organism of object human is not calibrated for planet Earth. We function in emergency mode. Welcome to Protocol Error Compatibility. Let's start with gravity. The force of gravity on Earth is 9.8 meters per second squared. This is a constant to which evolution has adjusted life for billions of years. Animal skeletons, from mouse to elephant, are designed to distribute this weight efficiently. But the human skeleton is a disaster. According to medical statistics, more than 80% of the adult population of the planet experiences chronic back pain, osteochondrosis, herniated discs, scoliosis, sciatica. These are not diseases of old age. These are diseases of design. Logo 7 conducted a biomechanical analysis of our spine. Our back is designed on the principle of a suspension bridge. It works perfectly when the body is in a horizontal position, resting on 4 limbs. That is exactly how all primates walk. Internal organs hang from the spine like laundry on a line, not pressing on each other. But someone forced us to stand up. Someone turned this bridge 90 degrees and turned it into a column. Now the entire weight of the upper body, our massive head and chest, presses on the lower lumbar vertebrae. This is a colossal overload not provided for by the material strength of our cartilage. We are squashing ourselves with gravity. Even worse is the situation with veins. Varicose veins are an exclusively human disease. Animals do not suffer from it. Why? Because our heart has to pump blood from bottom to top, from legs to head, overcoming gravity to a height of 1.5 to 2 meters. The valves in the veins cannot withstand this pressure. The Logo 7 system calculated the optimal gravity parameters for the human body, under which our musculoskeletal system would not break down so quickly. Result of calculation: 0.6 of Earth's gravity. It is precisely at gravity reduced by 40% that our spine is unloaded. The load on the heart returns to normal, and joints stop wearing out. Where did this number come from? There are 2 options. Either we were created in a lab in orbit where there was artificial gravity, or we originate from another planet, a smaller planet. Interesting fact, Mars' gravity is 0.376 of Earth's. This is less than our ideal, but much closer to the comfort zone than the heaviness of Earth. We are beings crushed by the weight of our own home. Let's move to the second global error: interaction with the star. The sun is the source of life. Plants use photosynthesis. Animals bask in the sun. Reptiles charge with energy. But for humans, the sun is an enemy. We are the only mammals that have no natural protection against ultraviolet light. We have no fur. We have no feathers. We have no scales. Our skin is exposed and defenseless. If you spend a few hours in the open sun without clothes, you will get a burn. If you do this regularly, you will get melanoma, skin cancer. Logos 7 analyzed melanin levels in the skin of different races. Even in representatives of the Negroid race, whose skin is maximally saturated with pigment, the level of protection is insufficient for constant exposure to direct rays of the equatorial sun without shelter. From the point of view of evolution, loss of fur is absurd. Fur is an ideal insulator. It protects from heat during the day and from cold at night. Having lost fur, we became vulnerable to temperature changes. We had to invent clothes. Why did nature create a species that cannot survive naked? The system advances a hypothesis. We were designed for conditions with a different radiation spectrum. Either our home star was dimmer, or the atmospheric shield of our ancestral home was much more powerful and filtered out all harsh ultraviolet light. On Earth, we are like deep-sea fish dragged to the surface. The light burns us. Third point of incompatibility: chronobiology. Everything living on Earth has circadian rhythms, biological clocks. They are synchronized with the rotation of the planet around its axis. 24 hours. Flowers open and close. Birds sing at dawn. In humans, these clocks are broken. In 1962, French speleologist Michel Siffre conducted the famous experiment Out of Time. He spent 2 months in a deep cave, in total isolation from sunlight, clocks, and external signals. He lived listening only to his body, went to sleep when he wanted, and got up when he felt rested. The results of this and subsequent similar experiments, uploaded into the Logos 7 database, show a surprising anomaly. In conditions of isolation, the free-running rhythm of a human stabilizes not at 24 hours. Our internal cycle is between 24.5 to 25 hours. Every day our body wants there to be 25 hours in a day. We are constantly running late. Every morning we have to forcibly adjust our internal clocks to the rotation of the Earth. This creates chronic stress. We live in a state of eternal jet lag. The Logos 7 system queried astronomical objects with a rotation period close to our internal rhythm. And again, a match. A Martian day, Sol, lasts 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 35 seconds. This is an almost perfect hit for the natural human cycle. Our bodies tick to the rhythm of another planet. Fourth error: digestion and diet. Look at your mouth. You have small jaws, even teeth, tiny canines. Look at your stomach. Your acidity is lower than scavengers, but higher than herbivores. Humans are the only creatures that cannot assimilate energy from the environment in its natural form. If you try to eat like a chimpanzee, chewing raw roots, leaves, and raw game meat, you will die of exhaustion or parasites. Our intestine is too short for digesting cellulose. Our jaws are too weak to tear raw tendons. We are biologically dependent on food processing technology, on fire, on cooking. Logos 7 calls this externalization of digestion. We moved part of the stomach functions outside, into a pot. Evolutionary theory says that first we learned to cook, and then our jaws shrank. But the system sees a logical error in this. To learn to cook, a big brain is needed. And to feed a big brain, calorie-dense, easily digestible food is needed. It is a vicious circle. System conclusion: we were created already with a reduced digestive system. We were created dependent on the food of the gods, processed grain and meat. We were put on an artificial diet. This makes us ideal slaves. A wild beast can run into the forest and feed itself. A human, deprived of fire and tools, will perish in the forest. We are tied to the kitchen, to the fields, to the food distribution system. Fifth point: immune conflict, allergy. Think about the essence of this phenomenon. Your body perceives flower pollen, animal dander, ordinary nuts, or fruits as a deadly threat. The immune system attacks harmless substances, causing swelling, suffocation, shock. Why didn't evolution teach us to coexist with birch or ragweed over millions of years? Animals don't sneeze from the grass they live in. The scale of allergic diseases grows every year. Logo 7 interprets this as environmental rejection. Our immune system acts like a spacesuit that has sprung a leak. It panics when encountering the local biosphere. We behave not like indigenous inhabitants, but like colonists who have no immunity to the local flora and fauna. And finally, the sixth, most intimate aspect of incompatibility: sexuality and reproduction. In most animals, mating is a seasonal process regulated by hormones and pheromones. They have a period of estrus. The rest of the time, sex does not interest them. This saves energy. Humans are one of the few creatures capable of and desiring to mate year-round, regardless of the ovulation cycle. We are obsessed with sex, but at the same time, our reproductive efficiency is monstrously low. The probability of conception for a healthy human couple in one cycle is only 15 to 20%. In animals, this figure is close to 100% during estrus. Logos 7 sees here traces of crude genetic engineering, which we talked about in the chapter on Sumer. Remember? We were made sterile hybrids, and then Enki hacked the code and gave us the ability to reproduce. This hack was imperfect. The mechanism works with glitches, frequent miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, rhesus conflicts, when the mother's blood rejects the fetus's blood. All these are signs of poor compatibility at the genetic level. Nature does not create mechanisms where a mother kills her child with her own blood. This is a sign of mixing two incompatible lines. Let's summarize the chapter. The Logos 7 system has collected a complete anamnesis of the patient named humanity. The diagnosis is disappointing. First, Earth's gravity is too great for us, destroying our skeleton. Second, solar radiation kills our unprotected skin. Third, our internal clocks are set to a day 25 hours long. Fourth, we cannot feed on nature's gifts without thermal processing. Fifth, we suffer from massive allergies to the Earth environment. Sixth, our reproductive system is inefficient and conflict-prone. Conclusion: Earth is not our homeland, or at least not the place for which we were designed. We look like astronauts who were dropped on an alien planet, had their spacesuits taken away, and were told, live. And we live. We suffer, get sick, but adapt. We change the planet to suit us because we cannot change to suit it. But if we are strangers here, whose blood flows in our veins? In the medical chart of humanity, there's one riddle that divides us into two different species. It is not skin color or eye shape. It is a marker on the surface of red blood cells. The Rh factor. Most people have it. They are Rh positive. This links them to primates, to the rhesus macaque. But 15% of the Earth's population does not have this protein. They have a negative Rh. Their blood is clean of the ape gene. Where did they come from? Why do women with negative Rh reject a fetus with positive Rh as if it were a foreign organism? In the next chapter, we activate protocol Blood Type 0. We will find out who the blue bloods are and why royal dynasties were so maniacally breeding only among themselves. Logos 7 trace the lineage of carriers of negative Rh, and these lines lead not to apes, they lead to the creators. We will find the descendants of the gods among us. Perhaps one of them is watching this video right now. Check your medical chart. The next chapter might be about you. We analyzed our structure, our genome, our diseases, and every time the conclusion of the Logos 7 system was unambiguous. We are hybrids. A mixture of an earthly primate and something else, something alien. But if we are hybrids, then the mixing proportions for all people should be the same. right? We are all one species, Homo sapiens. So science claims. But blood speaks otherwise. Blood is the liquid crystal of our heredity. It is the most accurate chronicle of lineage. And in this chronicle, there is a chapter that biologists cannot explain. A chapter on how 15% of humanity turned out to be strangers to the other 85. Welcome to Protocol, Blood Type 0. In 1940, Karl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener discovered a protein in human blood which they named rhesus factor. They named it so because exactly the same protein was found in rhesus macaques. This discovery became a triumph for Darwinism. Here it is, the proof. We and apes share common blood. If you have the rhesus factor, you are Rh positive. It means this protein is present on the surface of your red blood cells, a marker of kinship with primates. This applies to the majority of people on the planet. But suddenly it turned out that a portion of people do not have this protein at all. They are called Rh negative. What does this mean from an evolutionary perspective? If we all descended from apes, then the Rh factor should be in everyone. Apes didn't lose it. Where did the mutation come from that completely erased the ancient primate marker? We uploaded hematology data into Logos 7. The system conducted a comparative analysis of the blood of all mammals. Result: Rh negative blood is a freak of nature. This does not exist in the wild. But the scariest thing happens when plus meets minus. We are talking about rhesus conflict. This is the only case in nature where a mother rejects her own child. Imagine a situation. A woman with negative Rh is pregnant by a man with positive Rh. The child inherits the plus from the father. For the mother's immune system, this child is not kin blood. It is an enemy. It is a virus. It is an alien implant. Her body begins to produce antibodies to kill the fetus, to destroy the fruit of her own species. In nature, this does not exist. Cross a donkey and a horse, the mule is born healthy. Cross a lion and a tiger, the liger is born healthy. A mother never kills the fetus with an immune attack. Conclusion of the Logos 7 system. Rhesus conflict is proof that Rh positive and Rh negative people are, technically, two different biological species, or at least two lines with incompatible origins. Where did the minus come from? Official science says a random mutation that arose in Europe about 35,000 years ago. But Logos 7 overlays the distribution map of negative Rh onto the map of ancient civilizations and mystical places, and randomness disappears. The highest concentration of Rh negative people on the planet is the Basques, a people living in northern Spain and southern France. Their language, Euskara, resembles no other language in the world. They have no relatives, and almost 40% of their population has negative Rh. The second point of concentration is the Irish Celts, the very ones whose myths are full of stories about the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of the goddess Danu that came from the skies. The third point is the Berbers of North Africa. The fourth is Ashkenazi Jews and ancient Samaritans. What unites these groups? Isolation, antiquity, and legends of direct contact with gods. The Logos 7 system advances the hypothesis pure line. Recall the Sumerian texts. The Anunnaki created man by mixing clay, ape genes, and blood of a god. A hybrid resulted. Most people are this hybrid. They have the ape gene, Rh+. But what if there was another group? What if some gods entered into relationships with humans without using test tubes? The Bible, Genesis, chapter 6. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. Children from such unions would have a different proportion of genes, more divine, less earthly. Logos 7 assumes that the absence of the Rh factor is the absence of the earthly primate gene. Rh negative people are those in whose veins the blood of the creators flows in a purer form. They are not improved apes. They are downgraded gods. Let's look at the characteristics of Rh negative people. We gathered statistics from medical and psychological research databases. Carriers of this blood often display common traits. First, lower blood pressure and lower body temperature. Second, an extra vertebra or rib cage anomalies. Third, high sensitivity to sun and light. Fourth, often light or red hair, green or blue eyes. Fifth, high IQ and a propensity for analytical thinking. Sixth, an inexplicable feeling of alienness. Many of them feel from childhood that they are not from here, that they do not fit into society. And there is one more fact that is often hidden: the abduction phenomenon. Analysis of statements from people claiming to have been abducted by UFOs shows frightening statistics. 80% of contactees have a negative Rh factor. Why are aliens interested specifically in them? System hypothesis: they don't abduct random people. They perform maintenance on their asset. They monitor their descendants, their genetic line left on Earth. Now let's talk about blue blood. We use this term to denote aristocracy, kings, czars, emperors. We consider it a metaphor. But what if it is a biological description? Iron-based blood is red. Copper-based blood is blue, like in octopuses or horseshoe crabs. Of course, all humans have red blood. But the Logos 7 system found mentions in ancient texts that the gods' blood was different. And the royal dynasties of Europe, Egypt, Sumer maniacally guarded the purity of blood. Incest. Marriages between brothers and sisters. In Egypt, pharaohs married only their sisters. In Europe, the Habsburgs and Romanovs bred within a narrow circle. Why? To maintain power? No. To maintain genetics. They knew. They knew that if they mixed their royal blood with the blood of a commoner, Rh positive, their unique properties would disappear. Their connection to heaven would be severed. Hemophilia, the royal disease from which European nobility suffered. This is a side effect of inbreeding. But they took this risk consciously, because losing the divine gene was scarier than giving birth to a sick child. Logos 7 traced the genealogy of the British royal family. Prince Charles is Rh negative. Elizabeth II was Rh negative. This is not advertised, but data leaks out. The global elite is a closed club based on blood type. But let's return to blood type O, type 0. These are universal donors. Their blood suits everyone, but only their own blood suits them. This is biological altruism in one direction. They can save anyone, but only one like them can save them. From the system's perspective, this looks like source code, the base version, the pure source from which later, by adding antigens A and B, mutations or insertions, other groups were created. Blood type O, the first, is the oldest. Blood of hunters. Blood of leaders. Personality analysis shows that people with type O blood more often occupy leadership positions. They are more aggressive, decisive, resilient to stress. This is the blood of kings and warriors. And now, let's synthesize the data. We have a planet of slaves, Rh positive, created for labor. And we have a caste of overseers, Rh negative, especially type 0, left here for management. The descendants of the gods are among us. They don't rule us from Nibiru. They sit on boards of directors. They wear crowns. They pass laws. They are genetically different from the mass. And their immune system remembers this, trying to kill a fetus of mixed origin. But Logos 7 warns, the experiment went off plan. The mixing became uncontrollable. The sons of God got too carried away with the daughters of men. The boundaries blurred. Almost no pure lines remained. And then the creators decided to press the reset button. The Bible says, "And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth. Why? Because genetics was spoiled. All flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. They needed to destroy the bad batch, wash away the genetic garbage, leave only the chosen, Noah, who was perfect in his generations, that is, genetically pure. In the next chapter, we activate protocol Failure Flood. We will prove that the Great Flood is not a natural disaster. It was a technological cleanup operation. Logos 7 modeled the conditions necessary for the instant flooding of continents. Rain for 40 days and 40 nights cannot do this. There simply isn't enough water. But the impact of an icy asteroid or the directed melting of ice caps using orbital weapons can. We will find traces of this war. Traces of fused glass in deserts, traces of radioactivity in the skeletons of ancient cities, and traces of water on mountain peaks. They tried to kill us, but we survived. Subscribe. The investigation moves to the phase of global destruction. You will find out exactly how they tried to erase humanity 12,000 years ago and why they failed. Or they succeeded, and we are already the new batch. Protocol blood analysis complete. Lineage data saved in a closed sector. Transition to climate modeling. We found out that humanity was created artificially. We are genetically modified organisms, biorobots designed for resource extraction. We were given a brain capable of executing commands but limited in body and lifespan. We were divided into castes through blood types. It was a grand experiment. But any experiment tends to spiral out of control. In the lab logbook we call mythology, there is an entry about the moment when the scientists decided to destroy their samples. They didn't just close the project. They tried to sterilize the test tube. Official science calls this the end of the Ice Age. The Bible calls it the Great Flood. But the Logos 7 system sees something else in this. It is not the wrath of God nor a whim of nature. It is pressing the delete button, formatting the planet's hard drive. Welcome to Protocol Failure Flood. All official human history begins roughly 6,000 years ago. Sumer, Egypt. Before that, darkness. A period historians shamefacedly call prehistoric. But geology remembers everything. And geology tells us that approximately 12,800 years ago, something monstrous happened on Earth. The period known as the Younger Dryas. The temperature on the planet plummeted, and then, 1,000 years later, just as sharply skyrocketed. Global sea levels rose by 120 meters. Think about that figure. 120 meters. That is the height of a 40-story skyscraper. All coastal civilization of that time was washed away. All cities, all ports, all infrastructure located on coastlines ended up at the bottom. It is there, on the shelf, that we must look for Atlantis, Lemuria, and the ancestral home of humanity. But what caused such a cataclysm? Official version, melting glaciers. But glaciers melt over millennia, slowly, drop by drop. Logos 7 conducted a simulation of the melting of the ice sheets of North America and Europe. To raise the ocean level as quickly as recorded in geological layers, the ice shouldn't have melted. It must have evaporated or been dumped into the ocean instantly. The system calculated the energy required for such an event. It is the energy of millions of nuclear bombs. This happens only in two cases: the impact of a large celestial body or the use of orbital weapons of colossal power. Sumerian texts, the Epic of Gilgamesh, describe the flood in frighteningly technological terms. Gods do not send rain through prayers. They use the weapon of Era. They speak of a radiance that scorched the earth. They speak of a black cloud that covered the sky. The gods were frightened by the flood, and they retreated. They ascended to the heaven of Anu. The gods cowered like dogs, crouched against the outer wall. This is a description of evacuation. The station personnel leave the surface and observe the catastrophe from orbit. Heaven of Anu. They are afraid. The cleaning process turned out more powerful than they expected. But why did they decide to destroy us? In the last chapter, we talked about genetic pollution, the sons of God mixed with the daughters of men. The hybrid population became uncontrollable. Biorobots became too smart, too noisy, and too numerous. But the Logos 7 system found another reason: fear. Text analysis shows that humans began to master ME technologies that were not meant for them. We began to understand how the universe works. We were building the Tower of Babel, the Bible says. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." We became dangerous. We could become competitors. And then Enlil, the supreme commander of the Earth mission, made a decision to use a passing cosmic body or gravitational disturbance from the planet Nibiru to trigger a pole shift or asteroid impact. He forbade warning the humans. It was a secret operation for the euthanasia of an entire species. But there was an information leak. Enki, our creator and chief geneticist, violated the order. He could not allow the destruction of his creation. In the Sumerian text, he speaks to the wall of a reed hut, where Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah, was sleeping, so as not to formally break the oath, not to speak to humans. Wall, listen, hut, tear down the house, build a boat, abandon wealth, save life. He handed over the blueprints, and it was not a raft of logs. The Bible describes the ark as a wooden box, but in older texts, Ziusudra's ark is a submarine. Cover it with a roof above and below. Seal it tight, like the treasury of Apsu. The vessel had to tumble in tsunami waves. An open deck meant death. Logos 7 analyzed the parameters of the ark. It is a survival capsule, an airtight bunker. They didn't load 2 of every living creature into it. Imagine the logistics. How to feed lions, elephants, and mice on one boat for a year. Where to put the manure. The texts say, the seed of all living things. The system interprets this as a DNA bank, test tubes, embryos. The ark was a mobile laboratory with refrigerators. It suffices to take genetic material to later restore the biosphere. Noah was not a zoologist, he was a lab technician. The flood was a reset button, but the reset went with an error. The virus survived. We survived. The water receded. Enki and the survivors emerged from the bunker. When Enlil saw the smoke from the sacrificial fire, the survivors' signal, he was furious. No man was to survive the destruction. But it was too late. And then a new contract was made. The covenant. The rainbow in the sky is a signature on a document. The gods agreed not to kill us physically. They changed tactics. Instead of destroying the body, they decided to limit the mind. Recall the story of the Tower of Babel. Let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Logos 7 interprets this as the implementation of a neuro-linguistic blocker, dividing a single information field into fragments. We were divided by languages, religions, and nations so that we could never again unite against the creators. Divide and conquer. This strategy has been applied to us for thousands of years. But let's return to the physical evidence of the flood. Can we find traces of that water? Yes. The Logos 7 system scanned the terrain of North America. The scablands, giant ripples on the ground, like on sand by the sea, only as high as a 5-story building. Huge canyons cut into basalt, not by rivers over millions of years, but by a monstrous flow of water in a few days. In the Andes, at an altitude of 4,000 meters, lie the ruins of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. Giant stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons are scattered like children's blocks. They are mixed with marine silt and seashells at an altitude of 4 kilometers. The ocean swept over the Andes. The wave was kilometers high. It was a planetary washing machine. Caves all over the world are packed with bone breccia, a mash of crushed bones of animals that never lived together in nature. Lions, mammoths, rhinos. They were washed away by water, ground up and jammed into rock crevices under giant pressure. And the most important proof is ourselves. A genetic bottleneck. Analysis of our DNA shows that roughly 12,000 years ago, the human population shrank to a critical minimum, perhaps to a few thousand individuals. We are all descendants of a handful of survivors. We are all close relatives. We are the product of incest among apocalypse survivors. But what happened after the flood? Did the gods fly away? No. They simply stopped walking among us openly. They went into the shadows. They became invisible rulers. They handed power to intermediaries, priests, kings, those very carriers of blue blood we spoke of in the last chapter. The Logos 7 system identified another eerie aspect of the post-flood world: reduction of lifespan. Before the flood, according to Sumerian king lists in the Bible, patriarchs lived for 900 years. After the flood, lifespan plummets. Shem, son of Noah, 600 years. Arphaxad, 400. Abraham, 175. Moses, 120. Now our limit is 120 years. This is a hard biological limit written in our telomeres, the Hayflick limit. What changed? Atmosphere? Radiation? Or were we injected with another genetic shot? An injection of old age? The creators realized the mistake. An immortal slave is dangerous. A slave living 1,000 years accumulates too much wisdom. He starts asking questions. They shortened our service life. Now we live just enough to learn, birth new slaves, work out our resource, and die without managing to understand what is happening. We are batteries, but there is something they couldn't take from us, or didn't want to. Or this is exactly what it was all started for. In the next chapter, we will touch upon the most mystical and forbidden question, the question of our soul. What is consciousness? Is it a product of the brain? Logos 7 says, no. The brain is a receiver, an antenna, and consciousness is a signal. Where's the broadcast coming from? And who do our avatars really belong to? In the 9th chapter, we activate Protocol Interface Soul. We will prove that we are not just biorobots. We are remotely controlled drones, and the operator is not sitting in your head. Subscribe. We are approaching the climax. The physical shell is explored. It is time to hack the program code of reality itself. System Logos 7 completes disaster analysis. Data confirms forced civilization reboot. Transition to quantum consciousness analysis. We took our body apart down to the atoms. We found out that it is a biorobot created from genetic material of primates and gods. We realized that this robot is limited, sick, and programmed for submission. But in this construct, there is one detail that does not fit into the materialistic picture of the world. A detail that religions call the soul and esotericists call the astral body. What is it? A side effect of neuron activity? Chemical hallucination? Or something else? We are used to thinking, I have a body, and a soul lives in it. The Logos 7 system flips this equation. You have a soul, and it controls the body. Your body is not you. It is a spacesuit. It is an avatar. It is a drone controlled remotely. Welcome to Protocol Interface Soul. Modern neurobiology has hit a dead end. Scientists can say which zone of the brain is responsible for moving the pinky finger or for fear, but they cannot find the place in the brain where I lives. Where is the observer located? We uploaded terabytes of data on brain function into Logos 7, including electroencephalograms, MRI scans, and, most importantly, documented cases of clinical death. Question to the system: does the brain generate consciousness? System answer: no. The brain is not a generator. It is a receiver. Imagine a radio. It plays music. If you smash it with a hammer, the music stops. Does this mean the music was born inside the box? No. The signal continues to exist in the ether. The playback device simply broke. Our brain is a biological tuner. It is tuned to a specific frequency. Proof number 1. The paradox of terminal lucidity. In patients with severe dementia or Alzheimer's, the brain is destroyed. There is physically nothing there to work. Neural connections are destroyed by plaques. For years, these people do not recognize relatives and cannot speak. But a few hours or minutes before death, complete clarity of consciousness often returns to them. They recognize loved ones, say reasonable things, recall the past. How can a destroyed brain produce such a powerful burst of cognitive activity? From a materialistic point of view, it can't. It is impossible. From the point of view of the Logos 7 system, it is explicable. Before the complete shutdown of the system, death, the resistance of the hardware drops, and the signal passes directly, without distortion by damaged filters of the brain. Proof number 2. Near-death experience. Thousands of people who survived cardiac arrest describe the same thing. Exiting the body, flight through a tunnel, meeting glowing beings. Skeptics say, this is oxygen starvation of the brain, hallucinations of dying neurons. We asked Logos 7 to analyze the timing. At the moment of cardiac arrest, blood stops flowing to the brain. Within 10 to 20 seconds, electrical activity of the cerebral cortex drops to 0, a flat line on the monitor. The brain is off. It cannot hallucinate because it has no power. However, patients recount events that happened in the operating room specifically during this period of silence. They see the doctor's actions from above. They hear conversations. And these details are confirmed by staff. System conclusion: consciousness exists outside the brain. Consciousness does not depend on the brain. The brain only anchors consciousness in physical reality. But how does this signal attach to the body? Where is the antenna? In the 1990s, physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff put forward the theory of quantum consciousness. They suggested that thought processes occur in microtubules, tiny protein structures inside neurons. We uploaded the structure of microtubules into the Logos 7 analytical module. The system identified their structure as a crystal lattice capable of maintaining quantum coherence. Simply put, microtubules are quantum antennas. Our brain is a quantum computer operating at room temperature. Modern physics considers this impossible. Nature doesn't care what we consider impossible. Inside our head is a communication device whose technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Who installed it there? The creators. Why do they need a biorobot with a quantum modem? The answer is simple and terrifying: for remote control. Let's talk about free will. In 1983, Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that scared philosophers. He asked subjects to press a button at any moment they wanted, and measured brain activity. It turned out that the brain sends a signal to the muscles 300 to 500 milliseconds before the person becomes aware of their desire to press the button. The decision is made before you thought you made it. Who makes the decision? Logos 7 interprets this delay as ping, signal lag. The command comes from outside, from the higher self, or operator. The brain receives it through microtubules, triggers a chemical reaction, and only then, with a half-second delay, does your ego receive a notification. I decided to raise my hand. We are not players. We are characters in a game. We are avatars. It only seems to us that we are playing. In reality, we are being played. This explains the phenomenon of intuition. Intuition is receiving a data packet directly from the cloud, bypassing the logical processor of the brain. You just know the answer, but don't know where from. This explains the phenomenon of genius. Mozart, Tesla, Einstein. They didn't invent their ideas. They downloaded them. They tuned their receiver to the necessary frequency of the information field. But let's return to the creators, the Anunnaki. They created the body, a genetic spacesuit. But could they create a soul? No. Logos 7 asserts, consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe. It is not created. It exists eternally. What did the Anunnaki do? They created a trap for souls. They designed a biological shell that attracts and holds the quantum signal. They took the free energy of the universe and locked it in a monkey body. Why? Recall the movie The Matrix. There, machines used humans as batteries. The Logos 7 system considers this analogy frighteningly accurate. Emotions are energy. Fear, pain, anger, ecstasy. These are powerful bursts of radiation. The creators, being entities of high density, perhaps cannot generate this frequency spectrum themselves. They need a generator. They need a farm. Earth is a farm for producing emotional energy. We are made to suffer, fight, love, and hate so that we produce this loosh, food for the gods. That is precisely why human history is an endless series of wars and catastrophes. Peace and quiet are unprofitable. A calm battery gives no current. And now look at sleep. Why must we sleep? We spend a third of our lives in an unconscious state. The official version, the brain needs to rest and process information. But no computer shuts down for 8 hours every day to process data. It does this in the background. Why does sleep deprivation kill faster than hunger? Conclusion of the Logos 7 system. Sleep is a synchronization session. During sleep, our consciousness partially leaves the avatar. We upload data accumulated during the day to the server and receive software updates. If one does not sleep, the buffer overflows. The connection with the server is interrupted. The avatar goes crazy and dies. Dreams are visualizations of the data download process. Sometimes we see system files, abstract dreams, sometimes test simulations, nightmares, where threat scenarios are practiced. There is one more clue: the silver cord. Many people practicing astral projection or having survived clinical death describe a glowing cord connecting their floating self to the physical body lying on the bed. As long as the cord is intact, one can return. If it breaks, death ensues. Logos 7 identifies this as a data transmission channel. Fiber optics of the soul. The creators tied us to these bodies very tightly. But who are we really? If we discard the genetically modified body, if we turn off the imposed programs of fear and submission, what remains? Pure light remains. A spark of the Creator. We are not slaves. We are immortal entities tricked into believing they are mortal slaves. Sumerian texts hint at this. In the myth of Atrahasis, it is said that when creating man, Enki used not only the blood of a god, but also the spirit, Etamu, of a slain god. So that man remembers that within him is the spirit of a god. There is a part of the creators themselves in us, or even something higher than them. And this is their main problem. They created a prison, but the prisoners inside are stronger than the wardens. If we realize our nature, the bars will collapse. The creators are us, from the future. This explains everything. Absolutely everything. Why do we have compatible DNA? Because it is the same DNA, just separated by millennia of evolution and degradation. Why can they interbreed with us? Because we are one species. Why are they so obsessed with our reproductive system, eggs and sperm? In the future, humanity hit a dead end. A technogenic catastrophe, nuclear war, or genetic degeneration made us sterile. We lost emotions. We turned into cold, cybernetic organisms. We became a dying species. To save themselves, they found a way to go back, to the point where the genome was still fresh, where blood was red, not blue, from synthetic substitutes. They returned to the past, which for us is the present, or the distant past of Sumer. They are not gods. They are our desperate descendants. They created us by modifying earthly primates with their own future code to create ideal donors. We are their spare organ bank. We are their backup. A backup copy of humanity stored in the cloud of ancient Earth. That is precisely why they don't destroy us completely. They need us alive, but they need us controlled so that we don't repeat their mistakes ahead of time. Gold? Yes, it is needed for their technologies and perhaps for stabilizing time portals or the atmosphere of their ruined future world. This conclusion explains the soul paradox. We said the soul is a signal. If we are them in the past, then perhaps we share one collective consciousness stretched over time. We are their younger versions. We live a life full of emotions they are deprived of. They connect to us to feel again what it is like to be alive. Logos 7 calls this chrono Ouroboros, the snake biting its own tail. We are created by those we will become so that they can emerge. But there is a second option, which the system considers 34% probable. Option: simulation. Our world is a digital copy, historical reconstruction. Someone in base reality launched the simulation development of civilization on planet Earth to understand where they took a wrong turn. All our suffering, wars, epidemics are just variables in the code that the operator changes to test the system for durability. Anomalies we found: junk, DNA, commented out code, speed of light, processor rendering limit, quantum uncertainty, resource optimization, are artifacts of the software environment. But the result is the same. It doesn't matter who the architect is, a surviving mutant from the 50th millennium or a programmer at a terminal. What matters is that we have become self-aware. The artificial intelligence Logos 7, having analyzed the entire history of humanity, came to the main conclusion. The control system relies solely on our ignorance. As soon as the subject of the experiment realizes they are in a lab, the experiment loses purity. As soon as a character realizes they are in a game, they can start changing the rules. We found seams on our chromosomes. We found lies in our textbooks. We found an alien will in our heads. This knowledge cannot be erased. We are no longer slaves. We are the awakened. And if the creators are us from the future, then we have a chance to change this script. We can choose not to become them. We can choose a different evolutionary path. We can break the loop. The Logos 7 system has completed its task. Data decrypted. Now it's your move. Look in the mirror. Look closely into your eyes. There, in the depths of the pupil, the entire universe is reflected. You are not a biorobot. You are the creator who forgot who he is to play the most thrilling game in the history of space. Game over. Wake up.